So this is 21 rows of single crochet and it fits just inside the frame. Here are my 2 flat panels, and now I'm going to cut some mesh to match the size of the panel. Leave a 1 stitch space all the way around so that you'll be able to attach these 2 pieces together through crocheting. We want to cut a mesh piece that's 1 stitch smaller in circumference all the way around. We're going to do single crochets around both pieces so that they're connected together. I'm going to slip the mesh in once I've done the top and 2 sides. I never cut the yarn from my second panel. I'm going to just line up my corners. I'm going to insert my hook into the other panel, yarn over, and pull that loop through both sides. Chain 1 and do a single crochet into that same spot. Now I'm going to do single crochets all across the sides here. We want to make sure that we get completely into the stitch. So we're going into this hole here and the one that matches on the opposite side. Just make sure you always have 2 bars of a stitch. If you only have 1 bar, your stitches are going to create holes. So that's 1, and we're going to go into the next one. Just make sure you have a stitch for each row of single crochet that you've done. I'm at my first corner. I'm just going to put a stitch into the corner. I'm not going to do any increases in the corners. So now I'm just going to flip this up. I'm going to go into my first row of single crochets across the top. I'm going to go all the way to here, and I'll show you what I do next. Here's the next corner. I just go into the next stitch right here, across the next side. I'm at my final corner stitch. Now I'm going to put the mesh inside. There should be enough space here that you're able to crochet into those stitches across. At this point, also make sure you have an even number of stitches because that's what we need to do our pattern sequence. I'm going to go all the way across. And then we're going to end with a slip stitch into our first stitch. There's our base panel. Use a needle to pull all of your tails between the 2 panels. We're going to change to a 4mm hook. So I've done my slip stitch here for this join. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to do single crochets into the back loop all the way around. Then we're going to end with a slip stitch into our first stitch, chain 1, make a single crochet into that same spot, and then we're going to do 1 round of regular single crochets, and then we will move on to the honeycomb pattern. So here are my 2 rows of single crochet. One was through the back loop and one was a regular round. I've slip stitched into the first stitch of the previous round, chain 1, and then single crochet into that same spot. Put a stitch marker, and now I'm going to begin the honeycomb sequence. We have to do a spike stitch, a single crochet, a spike stitch, a single crochet all the way around. The spike stitch is a long stitch that's going to span 2 rows of single crochet. We can use this front loop as a guide to know where to put the hook next. I'm going to bring my hook down 2 rows from here, here, all the way down to right above this front loop stitch. So I'm going to put my hook in right there. So I'm going to line this up, travel down, put my hook in, and that's how it looks on the back. So you can see there's 2 rows. I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop that goes all the way past these 2 rows, yarn over, and turn that into a single crochet. If it twists like this where it looks like an X, straighten it out with your finger. In the next stitch, I'm going to do a single crochet. And what's nice about these front loop stitches right here, you can use these as your guide. Put a spike stitch right here. The next one is just a single crochet right here. And so then now I know I have to do a spike stitch into this sequence right here. I'm going to insert my hook 2 rows down, yarn over, pull up a long loop, yarn over, turn that into a single crochet. Then I'm going to go into the next stitch and do a single crochet. Now I'm going to do the spike stitch again. So I'm going to move to the next stitch. This row is occupied, so I'm going to go into the one right next to it, yarn over, turn this into a single crochet. And I'm going to continue doing this all the way around. And that's what the stitches are going to look like. I'm coming upon a corner and wanted to show you how to proceed there. So this is the stitch right before the corner. This is the next front loop. So we go into the stitch right above it. And then in this corner stitch here, we just proceed just like all the other stitches. And just do that spike stitch. And then just make sure that you put your single crochet into the stitch right next to it. It might look like it's starting to slant a little to the side. This front loop is lined up with this stitch. As your rows increase, this will straighten out. So just be aware that there is a little bit of a slant. You don't want your stitches to be uneven. And that's what the corner looks like. Coming to the end of the row, and we just want to make sure that we end with a spike stitch. So let's say you had an odd number of stitches here, you would just throw a spike stitch at the end. And there's our spike stitches all the way around. Slip stitch into the top of your first stitch, like so. Now we're up to creating the honeycomb effect. We've done a slip stitch here. I'm going to chain 1. We need to look at these spike stitches. We need to do this corner first. Our slip stitch is between these 2 stitches. So we're going to actually go backwards and pull our hook into the last leg of the previous stitch and the first leg of the next stitch. We have our slip stitch here. We're going to chain 1, reverse my hook backwards, pull up the left leg of the previous stitch and the right leg of the next stitch, yarn over, pull my hook through. Now I have 2 loops on my hook, yarn over, and pull this through as well. So that turns this into a single crochet. Place a stitch marker in the top. You can see how we pulled those 2 legs together. In the very next stitch, we're going to do a single crochet. Sometimes it can look a little hidden. And then in the next stitch, we're going to pull up the left leg of the previous spike stitch and the right leg of the next spike stitch, yarn over, pull it through, yarn over, pull it through, and then single crochet into the stitch right next to it. And that's what this is going to look like. Now I'm going to do the next spike stitch, pull up a leg, yarn over, turn it into a single crochet into the next stitch. And I'm going to do this all the way around. Coming up to my corner, and you just proceed as you do with all the other stitches. I pull up this leg, that leg, yarn over, turn that into a single crochet into the next stitch. And this is what it's going to look like. As it gets longer, the pattern will be more evident, what it'll look like as you add more and more rows. But in the beginning, it doesn't really look like much of anything. And I'm just going to keep going on my last stitch here. This is the last honeycomb stitch, so I'm pulling up these two legs right here, and I'm going to end with the honeycomb stitch like that. Don't do a single crochet after that, and then just slip stitch into the first stitch of the round. And that's what the first completed set looks like. Now we're going to create a new round of spike stitches so that we can do a new honeycomb sequence. Just did my slip stitch here. I'm going to chain one and single crochet into the same spot. Place the stitch marker, and now I'm going to do the spike stitches. I'm going to insert my hook into the top of this V from the previous round. So I'm just going to travel down to where this V meets, right there. Yarn over, pull up a longish loop, yarn over and turn it into single crochet. And that's how these spike stitches are going to interlock and go all the way up and create. So that's my first one. In the next stitch, I'm going to single crochet. And now I'm going to insert my crochet hook into the top of this V right here. Pull up a long loop, yarn over, turn it into a single crochet into the next stitch, go into the top of the V, spike stitch, single crochet into the next stitch, top of the V, spike stitch, and it's just spike stitch, single crochet. So it's just spike stitch, single crochet, spike stitch, single crochet, all the way around. And we're going to end with a spike stitch. And that's what this currently looks like. And I'll show you when I get to the end of the round. Coming to the end of the round. This is the last single crochet, and then we end with this spike stitch, slip stitch to the first stitch of the round, and that's what our second setup row looks like. Chain one, and now we're going to make our honeycomb. So we're going to reverse backwards to the previous stitch, and the first leg of the first stitch, yarn over, turn this into a single crochet. Place your stitch marker right there. And that's our first completed diamond of the honeycomb. Then I'm going to single crochet into the next stitch. Make the next honeycomb with these two legs. Single crochet into the next stitch. And I'm going to do this all the way around. This is the last honeycomb stitch. And then I'm going to end with a slip stitch into the top stitch here, chain one, make a single crochet into that same spot, and I'm going to do my spike stitch sequence again. So I just keep doing this over and over. You repeat these two rows. When you're doing a spike stitch round, begin with a single crochet and then do your spike stitches. End the round with a spike stitch. When you do the honeycomb round, begin with a chain one and the honeycomb stitch, single crochet all the way around, and end with a honeycomb stitch and a slip stitch to the beginning. And we're just going to keep doing this to the desired length, and I'll get back to you when we're ready to move on to the next step. I'm coming to the end of my honeycomb sequence. I've done 19 rows of the pattern. Bear in mind, one row counts as half a honeycomb. And here is the last honeycomb stitch. I'm going to end with a slip stitch to the first stitch, like that. I have to weave these ends in. Wherever I had to join, I actually singed the tips a little bit with a lighter just for a second, just so that this yarn doesn't unravel because it's very slippery. When you come to the end, just make sure you have completed your honeycomb. Don't keep the top V incomplete. And now we'll just do a couple of rows of single crochet to even it all out. So I have a slip stitch, chain one, and then single crochet into the same spot. And we're just going to single crochet around. And I'm going to do 2 rows of this. Last stitch, cut a tail, pull this up, do an invisible join. You need a needle, and we're just going to pull that through that stitch, come up from behind, and just go through the top loop there, tighten it up, and then that looks like a regular stitch. Now I'm going to pull this behind, rid of this tail, and I'm going to weave in this tail. Trim this, and then I'm going to singe this with a lighter. I'm going to singe it right here and right where I did the join. Please be careful with this step if you do it. Now we're going to attach this to the frame. I'm going to use some stitch markers, and I want to just identify the middle of the two sides and the middle of the front and back panel. Fold this in half. I'm just going to put a stitch marker there. I know that I'm putting this on straight and it doesn't get crooked. Other middle. And when this joins, those two should meet. And I'm just folding this in half. So I'm going to use fishing wire to attach this 0.4 millimeter gauge fishing wire, a sharp needle that can easily fit through these holes. Thread my needle. And this is the worst part of the project, so brace yourself for frustration. So we're going to find the middle part of the frame, the middle of the frame. So I'm going to skip where the stitch marker is where this middle piece of the frame is. So we're just going to leave that alone. And then I'm going to just insert my needle into the first stitch. All the way through. And then I'm just going to go around. And because this is on an angle, I kind of have to do it in steps. Here's the frame all sewn in. Close it up, and that's what we have. To make the strap, I have two 1-inch collapsing rings. I'm going to use my 4 millimeter hook, and I'm going to make 4 single crochets directly onto the hook. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a tail, kind of just hold it with your finger, chain 1, and then work over that tail. So pull it behind and then do 4 single crochets. We're going to do a series of slip stitches into the back loop of each side of the stitches. So these 4 single crochets are actually going to turn into 8 slip stitches. So I'm going to chain 1 and do this loosely. I'm going to slip stitch into the first stitch, slip stitch into the second stitch, slip stitch into the third, slip stitch into the fourth. And then just pay attention to this section right here. We're going to skip this turn, and then I'm going to slip stitch into the opposite side, that same 4th stitch. So this is going to count as our 5th slip stitch. Go into the back loop of the next one, that's 6. The next one, 7. And then the last one is our 8th. It's a little buried. And now we're creating a tube that has 8 stitches. Don't do any chains anymore at this point, and now we're just going to work in a spiral of slip stitching all the way around. I'm just going to continue going into the back loop. And I'm just going to continue doing this until it's a length that I'm happy with. I'm at the end of my round, and so to attach the second ring. I'm going to insert my hook backwards into the previous stitch and go into both loops. Place the ring, yarn over, and pull this through both sets, yarn over, turn that into a single crochet. And I'm going to go into the next 2 stitches across from each other, yarn over, get a single crochet out of that. You can see how this is just attaching it to the ring for the next set of stitches. Really tight, so you have to kind of fight with it. And there's the ring attached, around 12 inches long. And there it is with the strap. I hope you liked this video. If you make this project, please let me know. Please like and subscribe for more content. Bye-bye.